That's what I love about our portfolio now is we kind of can hit both segments of the market, the science-backed veterinarian channel, but also kind of the natural D2C direct consumer channel.
We're live. We got Bill D'Alessandro. Did I butcher that?
Close enough. D'Alessandro.
Bill D'Alessandro. All right. On the Top Dog podcast, former CEO of Natural Dog Company that's now been acquired by FoodScience, and you've transitioned into VP of Corporate Development, right?
That's right. Yeah. So that means I lead M&A for FoodScience. So my job is to look for other awesome companion animal brands and see if they would be a fit for FoodScience as acquisitions.
Fantastic. Been following Natural Dog Company for quite a while. I actually found out about it through a purchase on Amazon.
Awesome.
So I got the paw bomb.
Paw Protection or Paw Soother, depending on the use case.
That's the one. Paw Soother. Yep. I got that for my dogs, and the rest was history. Did a ton of deep diving, found out about the whole company, what you were doing, everything like that. So with that being said, if you want to just give us a quick little rundown of basically how you got involved with Natural Dog Company, what was your role prior to acquisition, being CEO, all that good stuff, just a bit of background on you and the company.
Yeah. So Natural Dog Company, for those that don't know us, we're a health and wellness products for dogs business. So we focus on supplements and grooming. So, some of our best sellers are wild Alaskan salmon oil and other fish oils for dogs, skin and coat, hip and joint, multivitamin supplements. We just launched a really cool new probiotic, which we think is really different, which we can talk about later in the pod if you want. We also have, the heritage line of the company is our topical balms for hot spots, for noses, for paws, things like that. We also have other grooming products, shampoos, wipes. Basically think all kinds of consumables for dogs except food. So we're not in the food business. But we did just launch a really cool line of toppers. Think like athletic greens for dogs. So we can talk about that too if you want. That's what the business is. That's what Natural Dog Company is. I actually acquired the business in 2018. The company's been around since 2006. Founded by a woman named Elise Davis. I acquired the business from her in 2018. Kind of helped take it to the next level and the next iteration. At the time that I bought it, it was a smaller business. It only had the balms and a couple shampoo products, but it had, a really strong trademark. It had a really rabid customer base, amazing reviews, great products. And, kind of my thesis was, 2018, a lot of tailwinds coming in the pet industry, which now as we stand here in 2025, kind of seem obvious in hindsight, but, at the time we were really excited about. And the idea was this great brand with this kind of not fully exploiting its trademark, right? We're just, we were just in grooming products and said, let's broaden the portfolio significantly, and expand the brand. And that's what we've done. So we 10x the business, since I bought it in 2018. And then just, 6 weeks ago here in April, 2025 is acquired by FoodScience, which is backed by Morgan Stanley Capital Partners.
That's fantastic. Oh my, it is one of those things where I'm like, did the domain Natural Dog, did that come with it, or does that something y'all
came with it?
Oh,
they had it the whole time.
Killer. Mm-hmm. Man, that's like that first move, being that first mover in a space like now where they're like, it predated like the big movement to holistic within pet. And it's like, that's gold in itself, just that domain and that brandability. And like, that's what people are searching. So I'm sure that worked really well. But on that note, I know there's D2C. So like you could order directly from Natural Dog, but I mean, how I discovered, y'all was through Amazon. So walk us through like, what was that prior to acquisition? And then when you came on, was it primarily D2C? Was it primarily Amazon? Like what is kind of that marketing mix for you guys now?
We're very much an omni-channel brand now, but when I bought it in 2018, it was 100% D2C. It was much, much smaller. It was 100% D2C, but when I bought it, one of the things I was excited about was it wasn't on Amazon at all because the prior ownership didn't really understand that as a distribution channel. And honestly, Amazon was smaller in 2018 than it is now. But as we know now, Amazon, especially for, pet supplements, human supplements, the supplements category is just it's such a big Amazon category with their subscribe and save. People really want to buy that category on Amazon. So you have to be on Amazon if you're in our categories. So a big growth thesis for us was take the product where the customers are, to Amazon. But then also there was an inbox. It was like wholesale at naturaldog.com. They had 800 inquiries from independent pet stores that they had never replied to because they didn't know how to do retail. They didn't know how to serve independent pet retailers at all. They were just a D2C business. So we immediately just started replying to those emails, all these independent pet stores that wanted to carry the product. And we are now in, at last count, I think it's pushing 8,000 points of retail distribution, for Natural Dog. So we're with Tractor Supply, Pet Supermarket, Pet Supplies Plus, Petco, Pet Food Express, almost all of it, like you name it. We're in almost all the chains and a bunch of independents as well.
Is Amazon still your biggest driver of acquisition?
Yeah, Amazon is a very significant channel for us. And like I said, you can't get away from it because of the category, right? Yeah. That's where the consumers are. So it's an important competency.
I mean, like, and Chewy's also laid out how significant like auto ship is, and like 80% of their revenue comes from people just like setting it and forgetting it. Like convenience has become the ultimate factor once you know a product that works and you like it, and it's just arriving there. So it is hard to like not leverage Amazon's, I'm assuming you guys do FBA.
Yep. FBA, subscribe and save, all of it to win on Amazon. And that's my background actually, Colin. So I am like, I was originally in finance and investment banking and private equity. Then I started a business called Elements Brands, which is a roll up of e-commerce businesses. So kind of deep experience in Facebook advertising, D2C, Amazon, FBA, et cetera. So that was the original thesis when we bought Natural Dog, was to kind of expand it across the internet. And then the retail skill set I have learned, in the context of Natural Dog, as we've expanded our brand.
One thing I love is, I think it's your pinned tweet, which is like you had the Bezos kind of picture where you first started, and it was like Elements Brands like behind you, and then
on a whiteboard,
and then it was like where you are now. The office has changed, and you're holding up the product and stuff, which is incredible. I mean, it has been an amazing journey. I before I joined forces with Roy at the Wolf, I had Dogonomist, where I was like just talking about the economy of dogs. And I had to go back and look. I think it was September of 2023. I wrote about Natural Dog Company, and I think you had just launched supplements at that time. Like that was brand new and stuff. And so it's just been incredible to see like how much it's grown. Every time I check back in or order some product, I'm like, gosh, everything, it's just something new all day long. And just to see that picture of where you started and now where you're at, which is incredible. And so,
thanks, man. It's I mean, it's in our industry too, right? Like it changes. So you got to stay up on it. So, consumer preferences are changing, new ingredients coming to market. So you need to be kind of finger on the pulse. It's consumer products. So you need to be launching new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I highlighted going back through this post was like, I think it was a wrinkle balm. So I took the wrinkle balm and the ingredients, right? Because a big thing now, taking a step back, is like, we talk about this a lot, Roy and I, where it used to be, we were all reactive as pet owners. It'd be like, oh, there's a lump or a limp or something's wrong. Like visually you see something wrong. So you go and try to figure out, a solution, see the vet. And now the massive shift is preventative. Like everybody wants to prolong any kind of ailments or anything that are happening. So again, people start looking at, how can I get out ahead of this? What are the supplements? And then people get inundated with this ingredient list. And so one of the things I did was compare the ingredient list in the wrinkle balm to like the top selling ones on Chewy. And they had 3x more ingredients than Natural Dog. And I was just like, it's just so nice to see a brand that like the name directly can be attributed to the ingredients. Like everything you're delivering is just hitting it like on all fronts. And I just thought that was incredible, because that's just what we're seeing now is everybody's like, I want to know what the heck is in these things. Like, what am I feeding my dog? Like we've seen an explosion in single ingredient treats, because it's very, very easy. Like there's not anything else in a chicken foot, if that's what you're going for, so it's crazy. You're one of the few companies I think that was just so in front of the curve on this. And so it's incredible, man.
Thank you. I mean, I'm smiling really big because we work our butts off for that. Like I tell our team, like as we're formulating products, that, our brand is for people who read the back of the label, right? Yes. Our consumers care. And I want them, when they see Natural Dog on the front, to know that when they turn it around and read the back, they can trust what's in the product. And we spend a ton of time. Because I mean, as you guys know, like you've bought all kinds of products, human and pet. A lot of times natural products, they aren't always as efficacious. Right. And so it's very easy to put out natural products that don't work. And it's also very easy to put out greenwashed products that do work, but are not natural at all. And so we've put a lot of effort into kind of threading that needle where the ingredients list walks the walk and the products actually work and are high quality. And that's more effort than it sounds like.
I can only imagine like between formulation, consistency in the product and doing it at scale, like y'all have. And then on top of that, launching even more SKUs. It's dizzying just to think about in that regard. I remember like your old Twitter bio, I believe was like, you were the CEO of Natural Dog, driving or working on getting into like 100 million in revenue. And now that of course has changed, but were you successful in reaching that goal, or what was kind of?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
We're not there yet, but we will get there.
Yeah.
We're growing and that is our BHAG is to get there. But it's awesome to have joined forces with FoodScience, so, when they called us, one of the things they really liked about us was our commitment to quality and the ingredients list. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with FoodScience, but their flagship pet brand is called VetriScience. Has been around for decades and decades, very well respected in the vet channel, but not a really strong B2C presence. Mm-hmm. So their positioning and strength and credibility in vet and science-backed formulas paired really nicely with our kind of D2C first natural positioning, but still focused on quality and efficaciousness. So the brands kind of really went well together. So that's what I love about our portfolio now is we kind of can hit both segments of the market, the science-backed veterinarian channel, but also kind of the natural D2C direct consumer channel.
I think there's a lot to talk about because, we were supposed to have this podcast, I think maybe a month or two ago, and then this whole thing happened, right? I'm making it sound like
I had to delay you for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm making it sound like it's a bad thing. This thing happened, right? This horrible thing happened where you got acquired. But I want to actually, before we kind of go on to that whole process, because I think many people are not aware of how difficult the process of exiting a company or getting acquired is. I want to kind of take a step back because everyone's, when we hear founder stories, it's just that, right? It's founder stories. I had this idea, I had this problem, I came up with this, that we scaled, we raised money, and then eventually we sold the company. But you kind of went the native route, right? The native soap, where he found this soap company. I think they were selling on Etsy, and he was like, he saw the potential, bought it for, very little compared to what he eventually sold it for. And it's a similar thing. Like so people don't talk about that enough. The potential of maybe seeing a small business being like, this has a ton of potential. I like this. I like that. I can scale this and sell it. Like, so what did you see? And then what are some things that if other people are looking for maybe a similar thing in pet and maybe outside of pet, what are some things they should be looking at?
Yeah. So what you're describing is called entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Okay.
So like as a catch-all kind of bucket phrase for what you're talking about. So find a business, buy it and grow it rather than starting your own thing from absolutely zero. And that's kind of been where I've spent a huge portion of my career. So, I did investment banking and private equity, and I left that and I started a business called Elements Brands. And Elements Brands, we bought 8 different brands across skincare, laundry detergent, sunscreen, all kinds of CPG products, all kinds of consumables. And Natural Dog was the 8th acquisition in the Elements Brands portfolio. It was the first time we gotten into pet. I always joke, I don't know where you guys are, but do you have these billboards? They say, "We buy ugly houses."
Oh, yeah.
You ever seen those billboards?
Oh, yeah.
And it's because, those people, what they know how to do is they know how to renovate a kitchen and a bathroom, right? And that dress up a house and make it nicer. Yeah. And they apply their skills, they add value to the home, and then they sell it for more money, because it's a better home when they're done with it. And I would kind of joke that, we buy ugly websites, because, our skill was taking a rock that was beautiful and polishing it and putting it on a hill and showing people what was so great about it, with advertising and positioning and, describing to a consumer why they would want it and taking it out to the consumer. So that's what we did, for 8 brands. And that's what we did with Natural Dog Company. Because,
but how do you see how do you see the potential in the ugliness? Like if you're looking at that ugly house and you're like, man, if I like, a lot of people will just pass it by and just be like, that's an ugly house. But then that one person be like, man, I see so much potential there. And 99% of the people miss it.
I think I think first you got to look in the mirror and say, what am I good at? And that was the thing that the things that I understood and was good at was putting a deal together from my time in finance. And I was really good at e-commerce marketing. So what I looked for is businesses that were winning despite being bad at the thing that I was good at. The thing that I was good at being e-commerce and marketing, right? And Natural Dog Company, nothing against the founder, but, founders are spread thin and it's hard to be good at everything. I felt as though the brand was significantly underperforming as far as its e-commerce presence, its storytelling, its positioning, et cetera. And it still had rabid fans anyway. Right. And that was the clue to me that it was winning despite being bad at a thing that was pretty important and a thing that I was pretty good at. So I thought, hey, if it's winning anyway, there's something really intrinsically good here. I can come in here and be good at the things that I'm good at, and then we'll really have something. So I think it starts with, if you're a product person, if you're a marketing person, whatever it is, look for businesses that are winning despite being bad at the thing that you're good at.
That is a great way to put it. And maybe we touched on it, but just quickly, like, how did Natural Dog come across your plate?
I had an employee who bought the product, and we had, at the time we were doing acquisitions, and I had like an internal form that was like, hey, if you interact with a brand and you think it's really great and you think we should buy it, fill out this form. And one of our employees was a customer, bought it for their dog and was like, hey, we should buy this. And I cold called her. I cold called Elise and said, you ever thought about selling your business? And the time was actually right for her. She had some things going on in her life that she felt like time was right. And we were able to get a deal done. So serendipity.
Did that employee get an extra bonus when you got acquired?
That employee is actually long gone.
Okay.
As long as has not been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
But thank you to him.
Yeah.
That was a great tip.
That's super cool. So so now you're in food science. Pet is pet your main focus right now currently?
Yes. Pet is our entire focus. Companion animal.
Yeah. Now we're talking acquisitions. That's you're putting your finance hat and putting your deal hat back together, and going to acquire these. What exactly are you looking for in this space? Like, what is making you rub your hands together? What are you on the prowl for? Within, I'm assuming pet consumables is kind of where you're sticking.
That's right. So pet consumables is where we're really focused. We would really love to buy brands that have some defensible IP. Brands with proprietary ingredients, trade secrets in their formulations, patented ingredients, things like that. Versus, there are a lot of great supplements out there, but a lot of them are fairly similar. So defensible IP is really attractive to us. We're also especially interested in some brands in toppers or treats, some of these kind of faster moving categories. We really love the functional treats, functional toppers category, where you're getting like a benefit, like a hip and joint benefit, but you're also, it's a topper for flavor or it's a treat, things like that. And we're backed by Morgan Stanley Capital Partners, so we can go as large as we need to, or we actually, I'm empowered to go as small as we need to. If there's a really unique piece of IP that hasn't been fully commercialized yet, or it's got proof of concept, we can buy that and bring that to market under our FoodScience or our Natural Dog brands.
Also. Oh, very cool.
So, if you're listening to this and you know of a brand, right, that kind of fits these criteria, we would love to talk to you. And we can structure a deal that works. We can allow you to continue to participate in the upside after you sell the business. As a former founder myself, you sit at the CEO's desk and I'm dealing with sales tax in the state of Florida, or I'm dealing with, this legal thing, or, there's so much that you often have to be focused on. That's not the part of the business that you love. And that's kind of one of the great things sometimes with combining with a larger business is you can say, oh, this legal thing, we have a general counsel for that. Oh, the sales tax thing, we have accountants that handle that. And you can just do the part you really like. And that's what I'm excited for, in joining FoodScience. Is the part I really like is meeting founders and doing the deals. Right. And my team got to stay, all my team is still with FoodScience, which is awesome. They were really excited for the skills and capabilities that we had. So, we're trying to build a really, really high quality platform of pet consumables, dog, cat. We may consider a little bit of equine, if there's good IP there, but really focused on dog and cat, a really high quality business for the long term. So if that's something that, if you know a brand that kind of fits well with FoodScience and Natural Dog, we'd love to talk to you.
We might know some brands, but we can talk about that after the podcast.
Yeah. And so is it purely acquisition, or is there any stage where you'd be like, we'll just put a little backing into this financially, and you can use some of our resources for some equity? Or is it like you kind of want to come in and be a bigger player or a bigger part of that brand's I guess.
Yeah. So we're not doing like venture. We're not doing like venture or minority equity. Like we want to buy a business and combine it onto our platform, because the other thing I haven't mentioned is FoodScience has full contract manufacturing capabilities. So we're fully vertically integrated, right? So like FoodScience is capable of making a lot of these products, in our facilities. So we're looking for a business that we can really combine in a brand that fits well with the brands that we already have. But and of course we're doing product innovation all the time under the brands that we already own. So it's not like we're not creating new things, new lines, new categories. But it's not a kind of, if you're trying to raise money, we're probably not the right partner for you. I'd still be glad to talk to you, just kind of pro bono to, provide advice. I always love to meet entrepreneurs. But it's not a fit for us at that stage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if you shared this, but what did you acquire the Natural Dog Company for originally?
I cannot share that number.
That's too bad.
But I mean, I can tell you, I can't give you a rough idea, but we did 10x it while I owned it. It was a relatively small business when I bought it. Employee count wise, I mean, I think when I bought it, they had fewer than 10, maybe fewer than 5 that were not in the production side of it. And we're closer to 30 now, when we got bought. So, the business grew substantially under our ownership.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then are you like, I am seeing so much, I mean, obviously the Zesty Paws but there's like a lot of smaller companies that are coming up with like little niches, right? Or like if it's hip or joint, or there's a bunch of other things, probiotics are big, but like, what are you seeing right now in supplement that even maybe wasn't even around 5 years ago that you're kind of excited about?
Probiotics, I think there's a lot of room for sophistication in the probiotic category. I know there's a lot of them out there, but I'll teach you a little bit about probiotics that I learned developing our product, which is pretty cool. So most probiotics are not shelf stable, which, I mean, they're alive, right? So most supplement products have a 2-year expiration date, which means that, and also it is required regulatorily, that if you write on the label 1 billion CFUs, colony forming units, if the product is not expired, meaning for the next 2 years, if they pull it off the shelf, it needs to test for that same 1 billion CFUs. Well, you have a problem because most probiotics don't live for 2 years. There is one probiotic that does live that long, a probiotic called Bacillus, and I forget the second part of the name, but Bacillus will live for 2 years. The problem is Bacillus is not that beneficial. But it's the only one that will live for a long time. So almost all probiotic supplements on the market are functionally Bacillus probiotic supplements, because it's the only one that will test out for 2 years. So almost any probiotic on the market, if it's whatever it says they may put in it at time of manufacturing, everything except the Bacillus is dead by the time that your dog is consuming.
Is this true for humans and pets, or only for pets?
This is true for humans too. Yes.
I was going to, go ahead, Bill.
Unless it's like refrigerated and, there's ways to preserve it. But most shelf stable probiotic supplements, human, pet, whatever, are functionally Bacillus supplements.
Yeah. What's interesting too, like touching on that is like, so you mentioned very, very in the beginning that like you basically had the athletic greens for dogs. And athletic greens now, like they include, and maybe this was the way it was, V1 or V2, but I know that now they have like all these additional probiotics. And so it does say like upon opening, consume within 90 days and refrigerate. Because I'm, a lot of that they're trying to keep, and who knows how effective any of that stuff is. But so
the thing that's hard, Colin, is you got to realize like by the time it gets to you,
right,
who knows how long it has been in a 95-degree Amazon fulfillment center and a UPS truck on a dock. Like, it's probably long dead by the time you even open it. The point is, we're developing a probiotic supplement, and this is sort of the state of probiotics in both human and pet markets today. So we actually found a really cool business that is micro encapsulating probiotics. And on top of that, they have gone up into Canada and they have cultivated probiotic strains from wolf species, canine native probiotics. And then they have these strains that are not found in people, right? That are kind of naturally selected for in canines over generations, harvested them from the feces, cultivated them. And then what they do is they micro encapsulate them, which keeps them alive. So that is the probiotic blend that we were able to launch with the Natural Dog Company probiotic earlier this year. So now we have, I think, one of the coolest probiotics on the market because we have canine specific strains, not just Bacillus, and we can claim them because they stay alive for the full expiration date of the product.
I hope you have somewhere on that label, like sourced by wolves or sourced from wolves. Feces. Like that's incredible. Like, that is truly that cool? Staying, brand aligned. That's actually super fascinating. I recently learned more about the microencapsulation through another company that's coming up on the scene called Alchemy Pet that has like a liquid topper and does microencapsulation, basically bringing the same kind of tech over that's been done on the human, like their scientists came from the human realm and now are doing it in the pet realm. And it's, I think it's like encapsulated with like seaweed or something. And their big thing is less about keeping a probiotic alive and more about absorption. So like making sure it makes it all the way through. So therefore they don't have to use as much ingredients. So you don't have to risk toxicity. Like, and it's more, the efficacy is dramatically
more
greater.
Bioavailable.
Yeah, more bioavailable.
Right? Yeah.
So it's really amazing. I did not know that was happening in the probiotic space. So that's really cool.
Yeah, because there's a lot of innovation happening in probiotics.
Yeah,
which will improve the efficacy of the product significantly.
So let me ask you this. This brings up a great question, right? So this is the big where people kind of like shake their head who don't know pet that much, but they're like, okay, in the supplement space, right? You take a probiotic or you take something for your joints. You're like, oh yeah, like knee feels good. Like, tummy feels right. Like, unless it is something like hip and joint in your pet, like, and you can actually see the changes. Like, what do you feel about, like, how do you feel about that? Like basically post consumption, like, do you think that we're going to get into a space or are you trying to be moving into a space where there's some way to test the efficacy afterwards? I know that a lot of that stuff can be invasive, doing blood samples or stool samples, or not necessarily invasive, but could be cost prohibitive and stuff. So what do you think about that with the supplement world? Since, the dogs cannot speak to us, cats cannot speak to us. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I think this is actually one of the biggest challenges in our industry is that our pets can't give us feedback.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. Now everybody knows like glucosamine, chondroitin, like these are very clinically proven effective ingredients. And you can see your dog's gait improve a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. You can also see similar effects with fish oil over time, omega-3s, skin and coat improvements, things like that. But to your point, Colin, like how does the dog feel better? Does the dog have more energy? Like maybe you can observe that. So for us, it's very easy when you're a supplements business to just like put in the new hot ingredient, right? And we also know in supplements, like a lot of times it's a supplement, so it doesn't require clinical testing. Like it doesn't require a lot. But when we formulate our products, we focus a lot on clinically proven ingredients. So rather than, you having to give your dog the supplement and then test your dog's blood, right? Obviously that's prohibitively expensive and inconvenient, et cetera. We look for ingredients that have clinical studies where those tests have been run on the ingredient in a controlled way to prove out the efficaciousness of the ingredient itself. So then we can rely on those studies when formulating our products.
Yeah.
So we can have really natural products, but they're also science backed.
Yeah.
And if you're buying supplements, I would really, really encourage you to flip it around, read the back, and type some of these ingredients into Google with the suffix clinical study. And I think you will find that many of kind of the front panel ingredients. And by the way, this is totally true for human supplements as well.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's not
Even more
confined to
so,
pet
I
at all.
think.
Even more so.
Yeah.
A lot of these ingredients are not clinically proven, right? But we have spent a ton of time trying to use ingredients that are backed up by studies that show they're efficacious. And it's hard because sometimes there aren't any, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it's very hard. There's products we haven't been able to make because we can't find a ingredient that is not a drug that is still natural, but also is clinically proven to work.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge for us.
There was a brand I saw that, but this was in human. I don't remember what the product was, but it had the ingredient list, and for each one, it was like this table next to it. It showed what that ingredient does. So we put this, and this is why we put this. We put this, and why we put this. But I wanna go back, and I thought that was great. I thought every brand should, if they can, do that. Back to the thing, because that really annoys me about the probiotics and the fact that it has essentially it does nothing. Like, I wrote a list the other day on LinkedIn of all these things that you have on human brands, right? If you go to the grocery store, and I'm sure in pet it's even way worse, but it's like premium, gourmet, deluxe, select, finest, superior, farm fresh. And I'm telling you, this is a list I'm just looking at now. It's like 50 different buzzwords, and none of them mean anything. Like, they have no legal standards. Just because they write that doesn't mean that the product is this or that. Just because it says straight from nature, it means nothing. And I'm assuming for pets, it's probably even worse. Like, are there things like a USDA organic, right? If I know USDA organic, I see that on human, I'm not like, at least I know this stands for something. It's a certification. There's some process, right? There's some due process. Is there anything equivalent like
there is
like that?
There is. Yes, I'm glad you asked about this. So there is in pet.
Topic right
Colin,
now.
do you know what it is? Do you know which one I'm going to mention?
No.
You look like you knew, Colin.
Oh no, go for it. Go for
it. So yes, and this is an evolving area in pet supplements, to your point, Roy. But there's the group that is doing the best work here is called the NASC, the National Animal Supplement Council, NASC, and we bent over backwards to get NASC certified. Okay. And you will see on all of our supplement products, you will see a NASC seal, an NASC seal. And we're not the only brand to have it. Serious brands are NASC certified of pet supplements. Our parent company, FoodScience, NASC certified. But like, to give you an idea of what goes into being NASC certified, they're going to audit your facility. They're going to audit your 3PL. They're going to audit all of the language on all of your labels. They're going to audit your sourcing. They're going to audit all of your SOPs around how you deal with complaints and adverse events to make sure you're handling those properly. It is an intensive process, and they re-audit you regularly. Oh, wow. So I would strongly encourage consumers to buy NASC certified supplements, because if it is not NASC certified, to your point, Roy, it is very much the Wild West. I will give you an example from human. A friend of mine owns a brand of creatine gummies, and he has been testing creatine supplements from Amazon, and he found that the top selling human creatine supplement on Amazon, not only the amount of grams of creatine that they claim per serving is higher than the total mass that is possible in a gummy, for the serving size.
Wow.
And so, like, just on his face, it's wrong.
Yeah.
He then had it clinically tested to figure out the creatine levels. There's no creatine in it at all.
Come on.
In the top selling creatine gummy on Amazon. So it is the absolute Wild West. I mean, human, even worse than pet.
Yeah.
But I would strongly encourage people, human supplements, pet supplements, buy third-party certified brands. Just because it's on Amazon does not mean it's legit.
That's actually great to know. I have seen that label. I have not looked much into that organization, NASC, but that is great intel for anybody listening who feeds supplements to their pets. And I was smiling earlier because the USDA just had a thing talking about rescinding the organic label for pet food. Like, that is a thing right now that is looking like it's going to go away.
They're going to rescind their regulations on what it means to be organic in pet.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, from what I gleaned very quickly looking through it, it seemed like it was just too much paperwork. like the cost didn't justify the
for
means
them to keep it
for
up.
them to keep it. Yeah.
And I will tell you,
So
and
maybe there's another NASC now for organic pet food.
So this, I will also tell you, things that I've learned in this industry. As I mentioned, we sell a lot of fish oil, salmon oil especially. I over the last several years have learned that the math in salmon oil, there is not enough salmon oil that is caught every year to support the amount of salmon oil that is sold in the pet industry. So that means that there is fake salmon, there's rampant fake salmon oil. And we actually went out of our way to work with a company called Arrivo, which is out of Norway. And what they do is they secret shop and they DNA test fish to make sure they certify that it is the species that you say it is and that is from the provenance that you say it is, meaning it's Alaskan or it's from Norway or wherever you say it is. So they're DNA testing. And what they found, I'm going to mess up the exact numbers, but you can go to, it's arrivo.no. You go to their website and read their white papers. They found it was something like 80% of the salmon oil supplements on the market were not actually salmon, in pet specifically, which is really where they're focused. And they were not DNA testing out as salmon. Some of them were like cod with red food coloring. I mean, it's bananas. So we have spent a ton of time, effort, and money to be Arrivo certified, and our manufacturer and our supply chain partners are Arrivo certified because you have to be certified through the whole supply chain. So it comes off the boat in Alaska, it comes to the manufacturer. You're certifying that they're not blending it with other fish and adding astaxanthin or something else that makes it red and passing it off as salmon. So we've spent a ton of time on quality supply chain, and I am not going to say names on this podcast, but there are major pet supplement brands that that have been mentioned that are selling fake salmon oil. That do not pass. I don't want a lawsuit.
Man,
but
honestly,
I'm telling you.
That makes so much sense because I'm always like, this is crazy how many salmon oils just like pop on the scene. And you're just like, where is all this coming? It really is one of those things that I'm like, where is all this coming from? And I really got into salmon oil because one of my dogs, and this is exactly why I even got the paw butter, or the paw balm, like, was because the paw soother. One of my dogs has like environmental allergies, and we had Cytopoint shots when we first got him and adopted him. And then I was like, man, I don't want to have to like go back and continuously I was like, let me find something natural. So I was like rummaging through salmon oils and stuff. And like, I could tell the different, like even just trying different ones, different consistencies, different smells, like all kinds of stuff. And like at the same time that I was doing that, I remember, to your point, talking about your buddy with the creatine gummies, there was like, I think it was like a TikTok or an Instagram, like someone went to like a Walgreens or, maybe Whole Foods and was testing salmon oils, and like how many of them were like just rancid, like not even good. They were terrible and like actually would do more harm to your gut and more harm to you than if you were to consume those and stuff. And so it really got me thinking. I'm like, humans, if we're getting away with doing this to humans, like I can't even imagine what's happening in the pet realm. And to all your, like, this stuff, the stuff that you're talking about, the certifications, NASC and Revo, and like, this is incredible. And it's almost like, who can we, cause I hate the onus to be on a brand, cause it always feels like it's coming from a biased situation, even though it's not. Like, you've done your due diligence and your homework, but it's like, there needs to be some form of education. Cause right now it's a lot of like dog owner warriors from their bedrooms who like get a lot of attention and will just tell you like, whether it's right or wrong or true or false, vets are in bed with big pet food, or, raw food is the way to go, or actually raw food will kill your dog, whatever, like all these things, like they'll just make all these claims, and there's a lot more complexity to it, and like all the things you're talking about. And I think if consumers knew, not everyone's going to pay attention and listen or care to ingest all that knowledge, but man, it would make the decision-making process so much easier, cause you're looking for these quick little things because
it's hard, right? As a consumer, because like consumers don't have time to get educated on all this stuff. And frankly, they shouldn't have to, right? And that is the real value of a third-party certifier.
Yeah.
Right? When you as a consumer can see that seal on a label, and it's a shortcut to trust. right? I mean, that's what consumers want. A shortcut to trust that says, I see this label or the seal on the label. I can trust this product because I know the brand's not lying to me because they passed third party audits. And that is, I think, still fairly nascent in pet. And that is why we threw our weight behind NASC and Orivo early years ago, because we really believe in what they're doing. And so it's my hope that they continue to be successful. But part of my mission is, like, if you're listening to this, buy Orivo certified fish oils and buy NASC certified consumable supplements for your dog. And you can be a lot more confident that you're getting what it says on the tin.
Yeah. That's great.
And I have no financial interest in Orivo or NASC, by the way, just to be very clear. I just believe in their missions.
Yeah. We need more of those, honestly. It's just the shelf space. It's like every celebrity now, I swear, like every 6 months, a new celebrity launches a new pet food. And I'm like, surely all of you aren't having proprietary processes. And I'm sure this is all coming from the same place. And, you know, it's just a packaging situation.
Let me defend for a minute some of these brands, because a lot of the fraud and quality degradation is happening at the co-manufacturer level. So a lot of these brands, like if, let's say you're a celebrity and you want to launch a salmon oil, like you'll go to a co-manufacturer and they go, yeah, we got salmon oil. Like, absolutely. Like, and you trust them. Right. And I mean, we have vetted our fish suppliers. There are several of them that will not pass Orivo audits. But the brands that are their customers don't always know. Right. And so it puts the brand in a really tough position after the fact when they find out that they've been selling fake fish oil for years, and paying their supplier as though it were real fish oil also. But the brand's going to be liable in that situation. So, you do have to really vet your supply chain.
Switching gears here, now that your day-to-day is essentially hunting and finding other pet brands to roll into the portfolio, what is your biggest pain point and like your day-to-day, your role now? Like, what are you trying to solve for, and doing those activities, like finding other M&A opportunities? Like what's the biggest pain point you're solving for?
The biggest pain point, like for me, honestly, is it's tough to find really good defensible IP in pet. Like that's one of the things we're really looking for. We're also looking for vertically integrated businesses. Like, even if you don't have a patent, because when you patent it, sometimes you got to reveal, what's in it. So a lot of times people have trade secrets, which remain a secret, and they control the value chain all the way through. That's really valuable. So I'm excited to kind of explore the industry a little bit more and learn about some of the people who are out there that are doing things that are truly unique and different, that aren't kind of me too. The other thing that's a challenge in pet, just honestly, is there's not a ton of scaled assets. As you guys might know, like there's a lot of really small businesses, some of whom are doing really good stuff, but from an acquirer's point of view, it's helpful for us if it's of a certain size. So we're ideally, for us, it's profitable. It's north of 5 million in revenue. And it has some sort of defensible IP, it just kind of, and it's consumable companion animal, like just as a first screen. It doesn't have to have all of those things, but like that's the perfect acquisition for us.
How long was the process from, let's say, I don't know, either you reaching out to them or they start, kind of the conversation with you. But I think when people read, it's kind of like when people read, this company just raised 10 million. They don't understand the thousands of emails and calls that no one took and the no's that they got. And even when they found, this VC, like the whole process. And so on the acquisition end, right, it's because those are the two celebratory moments that the people usually talk about, right? Like, we raise money and everyone's so excited. And then they usually don't talk too much about all the effort that goes into the next 5 or 10 years of work. And then the next kind of highlight is, we just got acquired, thank you so much for this and this person for helping the whole process. But what is that process like? How difficult is it? What are some things that, if you do have a company right now and maybe that's something you are thinking about, if you haven't already kind of started thinking about it from the get, like what are some things that you should look forward to or just know going into this, process?
Yeah. So a great question. So, Natural Dog is actually the 8th business that I've sold. So I've been through it 8 times.
Pardon the pun.
I'm a veterinarian, not a veterinarian. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of business acquisitions. So I'll speak a little bit, in generalities, having done this 8 times, which is that, if you like the easiest way to sell business is an acquirer calls you and says that we're perfect. You're perfect for us. We want to buy you. Here's a price. And then you're happy with that price. And then you kind of get to a deal.
Is any of those 8 times, does that happen to you?
That has happened to me. Yes. And in that case, that is sort of the easiest way to sell a business, which is pretty rare. But in that case, it still will take, 90 to 120 days because they're going to call you. You're going to have to negotiate the price. You're going to agree on the price. What will happen next is you'll sign what's called a letter of intent, which basically memorializes the terms. Like, this is the price. These are the terms. This is when we think we can close. Here's all the diligence we have to do. And at that point, you start a phase called due diligence. And due diligence is when the buyer examines everything about your business to ensure that the things that you have told them are true. And also to make sure that they're not stepping into any major risks that maybe even you don't see. So like what they're going to do in due diligence is they're probably going to test all of your products to make sure that your label claims are what you say that they are, which you might even think they are, but maybe they aren't if your manufacturer is lying to you. They're going to hire an accounting firm to come in and go through all of your books and make sure that you're doing your accounting the right way so that the, financial statements that you showed them are the GAAP appropriate, the generally applied accounting principles, like that you've done it the right way, and they can rely on the numbers that you told them. They're going to bring regulatory lawyers in to make sure you're not making statements on your labels that you can't be making. I mean, they're going to basically look at every aspect of your business to, 1, make sure you're doing things right, and 2, make sure that you haven't misrepresented it to them. And that's not that you necessarily lied, but just maybe you weren't representing accurately to yourself, right? A lot of small businesses have a hard time doing accounting the right way. Right. And recognizing cost of goods sold and matching that with revenue. And accounting is hard, right? And small businesses are not always great at it. So you'll go through a due diligence period that is typically, 90 days long. And then you make it through all that. And then you'll close the deal at the end of that period. So that's the fastest it can go, right? If someone calls you and says, here's a great business, it's a great price, they still have to do due diligence. If you don't have an acquirer, but you have a great business and you think you might want to sell it, the longest it can take would be you hire an investment bank. The investment bank learns all about your business. The investment bank tries to anticipate all of the questions that buyers are going to ask in due diligence and prepares an investment memorandum about your business, basically a book about your business. They help you clean up all your accounting in advance, right? They write a book about why your business is great, why the markets it's in are great, why the industry is growing, why the products are great, et cetera. And then that investment bank will proactively go out to hundreds and hundreds of buyers, right? People who are interested in pet, they'll call me, they'll call lots of people like me, et cetera. And then they'll run sort of an auction process. And then at the end of the auction process, someone will win the auction. And then everything that I talked about earlier begins, right? You sign an LOI and they go through due diligence to close. If you kind of start from scratch and you run a broad-based auction process, it can take up to a year to sell a business. So it's not something where you go like, I want to sell my business. And it's, it's not like putting a house on a market. You put a sign in the yard and you're done. Yeah. It's definitely a process. And I think, the best buyers are the ones that have been in the entrepreneur's shoes, which, as I mentioned, have been 8 times, and can understand like, hey, maybe like you got to frame these questions the way the entrepreneur is going to understand. You got to be kind of on their team because we're all trying to get to a deal here. So it's a process to sell a business. It's hard to sell a business.
What does the bank usually take? What percentage?
It's negotiable and it depends a lot on the size of the deal. Smaller deals, an intermediary like an investment bank or broker can take up to 10% on smaller deals. Larger deals, it can be as low as, 1.5% to 2%.
Just like everything, there's many, many variables. And everything's a snowflake.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of is, right? Yeah. Every business is kind of different. And that's what due diligence is figuring out in what ways this business is different. What is idiosyncratic about this business and what risks does it have? What amazing things does it have? And how we mitigate the risk and create value for the amazing things.
Touching on a trendy thing here, AI. How are you integrating that? Are you integrating it into your current workflow? How does that bleed into what your tech stack is? What are you using to make your day-to-day life better, easier, and how are you leveraging AI if you are at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, I'm using it personally every day. I find a kind of a shocking number of my queries now go to ChatGPT rather than Google.
Yeah.
It's really good for researching supplement ingredients. And of course you should validate because it can hallucinate. But it's really good for first cut kind of even product formulation. It can be really good. This is a cool story. Several months ago, we were developing a new product. We were having an interaction where the bottles would be bloating, like there was some gas was being created. So two bits of the formulation were reacting with each other to create a gas. It wasn't a health problem, but it was causing the bottles to explode. So that's not good. So we actually were able to, we couldn't figure out which two, because there are a lot of ingredients in the product, which two might be reacting. And so I actually was able to take the whole ingredients list, put it into ChatGPT model, and say, hey, this is the behavior you're experiencing. Can you hypothesize which ingredient pairs might be reacting to be creating this off-gassing? And it gave me several speculations, one of which ended up to be the interaction.
That's wild.
Which is pretty
incredible, man. Oh, that's a great use case. Wow. That's really
it's cool. Well, AI is really good. What I find like the best thing AI is best at is like taking huge amounts of context and making connections.
Yeah.
Right. So like huge amount of context, all of these ingredients, all the different ways they might interact, right? And going, that's the connection right there. Another way we've used it is, other brands listening. It can be sometimes challenging because people will approach you and say, hey, I want to buy your products wholesale. And they represent themselves as a small pet store. But then, and you sell it to them, and then the products start appearing on Amazon and they start undercutting your MAP pricing on Amazon, and you don't know where they use a different name on Amazon than they do to buy from you. So you don't know who's who, and you don't know how to cut them off. And you don't know where this product is coming from. And it can be really, really frustrating. We have started using AI. So this just happened a month or two ago where there was product on Amazon. We didn't know where it was coming from. It was authentic product. So we knew they were getting it from us, but we didn't know what name they were using with us. So what I did is I uploaded our entire order database to AI. And then I also gave it everything, the entity information on Amazon. And I also did some Googling to figure out like who the secretaries, the registered owners of that LLC from Amazon were. And I said, okay, here's all of our orders. Here's everything I know about this Amazon reseller. I want you to look at all my orders and give me a weighted probability of who it probably is. And it figured out who it was because the email address that they had ordered from us with was an anagram of the LLC name that they were using on Amazon.
Oh my God.
And we would have never ever figured it out, ever, at a human level. But it was able to go through all of those orders, like that, just a massive amount of data that a human couldn't, and go,
dude, it's endless.
Yeah.
Like the use cases are endless.
Are endless. And I find like the best use cases are when you would need to hold so much information in your head in order to make the connection. That's when AI is really good. Like all of the ingredients of the world and their interactions, all of the different product data, or all the different orders and, where they might have been from and their shipping addresses. And you got to go through one by one. AI is really good at holding the whole data set in its head all at once and making a connection.
My fear with AI is the dependency aspect of it, where it's like, it's so good in so many things. It's kind of like how when I was a kid, and I still actually remember, I had one of my best friends. I remember his number to his house. Still, like his actual house, pre-cell phone. I still to this day remember that number. Today I don't remember anyone's cell because I don't need to, because it's all on my cell phone. So it's like I'm just offloading all that agency to the machine, and I always wonder, like, because it's so good, like how much of our agency are we just going to be offloading to AI, especially like with us, we're older, so we have certain habits we grew up with that we're not going to be completely annihilated. But like this younger generation, it's like they're using AI when they're like 10, 11, 12. It's just so ingrained into everything they do. So I don't know. That's my only, like, I'm fully on board with how amazing it is, but that's always in the back of my head.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, without minimizing what you just said, because I think it's very valid, our parents would have said the same about us and Google.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
And then we would have like, and calculators. Right. And like all of these, like, so just keep going back. These kids are never going to learn to do math. These kids are going to never learn to use the Dewey Decimal System in a library card catalog, and they're not going to know how to research things. They're too dependent on Google. So like, we have heard this before. I think the ultimate question though, Roy, what you're getting at is it different this time?
Yeah.
Like, is this thing so good that you don't even have to think? Which it might be. So like I said, not minimizing.
We've never had an agent. It was all technologies that we were using versus now, and there's an agent that is essentially a partner that is there to kind of help you along the way, you know? And it's just, there's so many, like you said, there's so many more use cases and I think we're just going to be finding more and more, obviously, every day as this develops and as it gets better. But, you know, nevertheless, I'm still excited and I still use it just as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, if you don't, it's just the old adage of like adapt or die. Like, that's just really what it is. It's the same thing with like people who failed to bring their businesses online when everyone was shopping online and then eventually mobile. And it's like, I could make the argument that our generation and even especially the generations, you know, coming after, like, don't really critically think. And it's all about like what you see on the internet is real. And that's my belief. And I latch onto it. And so if anything, this is accelerating that, but maybe at least they can get some unbiased truths with AI. Like maybe we'll be a little more guided in our critical thinking, even though we're not doing it for ourselves. So, yeah, only time will tell. Bill, it'd be super interesting, like those two use cases. And I know this would probably, like, ironically, you'd probably have to use AI to some degree to find out what this would be. But I would be so curious, like, what that cost would be to solve that issue for both of those. The ingredients, like, traditionally, AI is not in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
To, like, solve that problem, right? Like, how much money, like, what was that cost savings and time savings you got with that? And especially tracking down a fraudulent supplier, like, you know, that whole, it's like essentially you have a private investigator in your pocket, which was able to figure that out like in a day, you know?
Yeah. And I don't even know if it would have been possible. I mean, you have to brute force a giant data set, you know?
Yeah. Oh man. Well, all right. I think we've spent enough time. There's always a million questions. It was an absolute pleasure, Bill. If people want to get in touch with you, whether it's to ask you any kind of certain questions or maybe pitch their business to get acquired, what's the best way to contact you, follow you, reach you?
Yeah, it's easy. You can email me. It's bill@naturaldog.com. Very easy to remember. You can also find me on X, aka Twitter, at BillDA, BILLDA. So I'm easy to find. I'm all over the internet, or just type my name into Google. I will come right up. If you own a business or you know of a business that you think would be a great fit for us, I would love to buy it from you. So let's talk.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, thank you again so much, Bill. It was an absolute pleasure. We hope to do it again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
thanks
man.
for having me, guys.
Appreciate
this
it.
Great.